Okay, hello everybody. Today we are going to finish up our entire unit here on statistical models. So we have made it all the way to the end of Module 10. We started Lesson 10.2 yesterday in the previous video, and we're going to finish up Lesson 10.2 today. So these last sets of notes, I'm literally just going to write on the complete backside of the packet. So if you go all the way to the last page, backside, this final backside of extra notes is where we're going to write notes for today. Okay, so what we're going to do is I already kind of have this listed out here, and we'll give you guys time to write as you need to. Feel free to speak up and pause the video. But I'm going to go ahead and write on this back side that this is Lesson 10.2 continued, so we know what lesson this went with. And homework today is just going to be an extension of what you started on 10.2 yesterday. On pages 372 and 373, you're just going to add 16 through 20 even. So that's just 16, 18, and 20 that are going to get added on to the end of yesterday's homework, and then we'll grade all of 10.2 together as one assignment. So here is the last thing we need to know for this unit. Okay, we need to know about kind of a technology enhanced version of what we call a linear regression. So go ahead and get down linear regression. And what you want to write that is that's what we technically call a line of best fit for a data set. So back in lesson 10.1, we got out our little handy dandy clear rulers and we practiced drawing lines of fit that went through the middle of the scatter plots the best that we could draw them by hand as humans. But we said, if we weren't doing those all together, we would all very likely draw very different lines because we couldn't technically determine the best line just by using hand and eye coordination. So linear regression gets you truly the line that is the best fit for the data, and it can only be done on a calculator. So don't ever see a linear regression problem and be like, I got that, I can do that by hand. You can't do a linear regression. You can do a line of fit that will be decent, but only your calculator can do a linear regression that gives you the line of best fit. So basically what the rest of these notes are going to be is a whole bunch of calculator steps. So you guys are going to take the time, okay, to write these out. Feel free, like I said, to stop and pause and let everybody get everything down. I'm going to kind of talk through them, and then you guys can stop if you're not ready to move on yet, and let everybody finish copying. So here are our calculator steps. There's a few things that you're going to want to do at first just to set up your calculator before you ever even try to do a linear regression problem. So one of the first things that you have to do is we have to do something called turning on your stat plots. So it's a setting in the calculator that has to be switched to on, otherwise it will not do what you're needing it to do with your stats that you're putting in. So to turn on your stat plots, you're going to hit second stat plot, okay, and just be patient and write them down right now. I will get my calculator under the camera here and I will do every step with you on a problem in just a second. Second stat plot, you're going to hit enter while it's flashing on plot 1 twice to turn them on. And again, I will show you, just have it written down. And then you can just hit second quit to get out of that screen. The other thing that has to be turned on is you have to turn your diagnostics on. So to turn your diagnostics on, you will hit second and the number 0, and you will cursor down to where it says diagnostics on, and you will hit enter twice on the word diagnostics on. And then it will tell you that your diagnostics have been turned on. So those are 2 setup steps that have to happen before you ever put in any actual information. Then it's on to the good stuff. Entering your data. To enter your data, you just have to push the button that says Stat and go to Edit and type in your X values in the list 1 and Y values in list 2. So we've done that before. So get that down. And then once you have entered all of your data, that's when you can start actually getting it to calculate some things. So, first of all, you kind of want to see what the scatter plot looks like. To see your scatter plot, you just hit zoom 9. So you put your data in, and you make a scatter plot so that you can kind of see what your scatter plot looks like. That'll give you a chance to kind of see like, ooh, it's positive correlation, it's negative correlation. It gives you an idea of what you're working with. And then instead of you by hand trying to draw a line through the scatter plot that you think looks good, your calculator is going to give you the linear regression. So here's the steps for linear regression. You hit stat. And instead of edit, you cursor over to the word calc, and you choose option 4 that says linreg, which is like an abbreviation for linear regression. And then you cursor down to the word calculate and hit enter, and you will get quite the decimal. You're going to round your decimals to the hundredths place. So that's 2 decimal places to write your equation. All right, and then last but not least, so you can actually see your amazing line of best fit go through the graph and how well it fits it, you are going to hit y equals, type in that linear regression equation that you wrote down, and then hit the word graph. And it will show you that lovely line going right through the middle of your scatter plot so that you guys know what that will actually look like. Okay? All right. So pause if you need to. Make sure everybody has this down. And then what we're going to do to show you how it actually looks on a calculator is, since your homework is 16 through 20 even, we're actually going to do number 16. So give everybody a moment to get your book open to page 372. Get your homework from lesson 10-2 and just add on to the end of it, starting with number 16. So everybody get that set. And here we go. So if you are on page 372, this is number 16. What you're going to notice is there's no directions on this page. They're on the previous page. So let's take a look at what the directions are. On page 371, here is what we are doing. Use the given data and your calculator to find an equation for the line of best fit. That's that linear regression. Then interpret the correlation coefficient and use the line of best fit to estimate the average temperature of another city using the given latitude. Okay, so there's our directions. Let's work through the calculator steps for this particular problem, and then we'll look at how we should write down our answer. Okay, so going back to your notes and getting my calculator here in front of me. Okay, here's a suggestion that I have. Okay, because you never know what settings another class period has gotten into the calculator, it might always be a good idea to look up at the whiteboard and do those reset steps. It's second, plus sign, 7, 1, 2. And then you could hit enter or clear to get that off of there. That way you know that nobody else's settings are going to be interfering with what you're trying to do. Okay, so I'm on this step, setting up my calculator. I need to turn these 2 things on. So I'm going to first turn my stat plots on. Okay, so here is where you need to be. Okay, I'll zoom in as much as I can here so everybody can see. Okay, it's second, and then see above the y equals button where it says stat plot in blue, second stat plot. Okay, and where right now it should say that plot number 1 is off. Okay, what you guys are going to want to do while it is hovering there over plot 1 is you're going to hit enter, and then it will take you to this screen, and so you have to hit enter twice while it's flashing right there on the word on, and it will switch it to on. So second stat plot and hit enter twice, and that should say on. And now to get out of this screen, you just do second quit. Quit is right next to second. Okay, so your stat plots are now on. Help people out around you if they need it. Pause if necessary. Make sure everybody's got stat plots on. Okay, then from there, we need to turn your diagnostics on. Okay, so for that, it says hit second 0. Okay, so we know where second is. There's my thumb. Okay, 0, like literally the number 0. Second 0. Okay, you will get a menu that says catalog on here. Okay, you need to go all the way down to diagnostics on. Guys, these are in alphabetical order. So you can cursor all the way down if you want, but it's really lengthy. Shortcut trick, right here above the x to the -1, see that little green D? If you will hit that number, it will bump you down to at least the D's so that you can cursor down to diagnostics on a little quicker. There it is, diagnostic on. See it? And then you need to hit enter, enter. So it will show up on your screen, and then once you hit enter the second time, it will say it is done. That means your diagnostics are on. Done. That step over. Okay, so help each other out. Make sure everybody's diagnostics are on. And then you can just hit clear, and that will go away off your screen. So once those two things are on, guys, you only need to do that one time. Okay, from now on, the rest of the day, those things will stay on. Okay, until it gets reset or somebody turns them off. Okay, but the first time that you get on your calculator and it's been reset, you need to turn those two things on. All right, let's now get into entering our data. All right, on your calculator, you want to find that button right there that just says stat, right here. So push the stat button where my finger is pointing right there, and it will be on edit. Stat, edit. So you just go ahead and hit enter on the word edit, and it should get you to this L1, L2 that we're familiar with and that we've seen before. Okay, so this is where I'm going to type in my numbers. So you want to take a second and carefully type in these numbers as your L1. So I'm going to give you a second, type in your latitude numbers. Okay, once you've typed in everything in L1, you just hit the right arrow to cursor over and it will go into L2. Okay, so for L2, you're going to want to type in this column of numbers. Okay, what I'm going to actually need to do is, because they don't give me the number that goes with the 29.2. Give me a sec. We're going to cursor back over to L1, and we're going to find that 29.2, highlight the 29.2, and let's delete it. So see right here where my finger is pointing, DEL, delete. I'm going to delete the 29.2. Because if we don't have a number to put next to it, that's not going to work. So we'll come back to that later. Sorry about that. Okay, cursor over to L2, and now we can type in all of these. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to type those in. Okay, one thing that's really important is that you should have the same number of items listed in each column. If your two columns come out uneven, you made a mistake somewhere that you need to go back and correct. Because if you have, like, if we had had 10 numbers over here and 9 numbers over here, it would have told us when we tried to do any calculations that we had a dimensions mismatch. So if you ever get that error on there, then it means that you need to go back into your stat edit and look at your lists because something is wrong in your L1 or your L2. Okay? All right, so we should all have our stats entered. So now that that is done, look at the next step on your list. We've done this. Let's see what it actually looks like. Let's make a scatter plot. So here's how we make the scatter plot. We hit zoom 9. Okay, guys, zoom is right here in the middle of the screen. And if we hit zoom 9, I'll show you what it looks like, but just you can just hit zoom 9. Number 9 is zoom stat. So it will zoom to where your stats are that you put in. So you can either hit the number 9 or you can hit enter on the 9. But that would be my scatter plot. So if you look at that, that's looking like, wow, this has a pretty strong negative correlation. There's definitely a trend there. It's definitely a downhill negative situation, and they're really close together. Okay, so now we're going to get the calculator to tell you the best line that would fit through the middle of those points. That's my linear regression. So, looking at the next steps, okay, getting the linear regression requires you to go back to the stat button. Okay, so stat, again, is right here, says stat on it, stat. Okay, but now instead of going to edit, use your right arrow and cursor over to calc. And then see how option number 4 right there says linreg? That is what you want. So either hit the 4 or cursor down to the 4 and hit enter, but we want to choose option 4. And then it'll already say L1 and L2, that's good, leave it. Go down to the word calculate and hit enter. Okay, so here is what you have on this screen. Okay, it uses, instead of y equals mx plus b, it says ax plus b. So in other words, right there when they give you the a, that's them giving you the slope. Remember how we had a negative correlation? It makes sense that, oh, that's a negative slope because it's a downhill slanted line. And then that b is your y-intercept. And then look, remember how we said r would be correlation coefficient? Your correlation coefficient is like negative 0.98, like super, super close to -1, which means that there is an amazingly strong negative correlation here. So that is what they're going to mean when they say, like, analyze the correlation coefficient. It's a super, super strong correlation coefficient because that's super, super close to -1. The r squared you don't need to worry about at the moment, but the r, the a, and the b are important to you. So what you would want to do at this point is, just so you can see how awesome that line is that they gave you, let's write it down. So let's go to your paper, and as number 16, okay, the first thing you were asked to do as far as directions goes was find an equation for the line of best fit. So let's get that down off your calculator. Okay, your equation is going to go y equals negative 0.76x, because we're going to round to the hundredths place. And then it'll be plus 69.81, because you would round that 0 up to a 1. So plus 69.81. So this is your equation of the line of best fit. That is the best line. Just so you get a chance to see it, let's do that on your calculator so you can see it. To graph that actual linear regression, you're going to go right here to the y equals button, right there on the left side under the screen. Hit y equals, and we're going to type in that equation that you just wrote down. We're going to type in negative 0.76x, remember x is right here next to alpha, plus 69.81. Okay? And you're just going to hit the word graph right here on the right hand side. And your scatter plot's still there, and there is the line of best fit, the best line. And see, the calculator has the ability to kind of put it through the middle of the dots, okay, and get it the best in the middle as possible. We couldn't do that by hand because we had to have at least 2 points to write our equation. So that's kind of, I'm going to put the calculator aside. This is the first part of your answer for 16 because you have given them the equation for the line of best fit. And then it says interpret the correlation coefficient. Okay, so we want to put down what that R was on your screen, and it was negative 0.98. Okay, and since it was negative 0.98, they want you to say what that means. So I would say very strong negative correlation. So your points are really strongly linked to that line. Okay? So that means that that line of best fit is going to be really, really good for making some estimates. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to this missing piece right here. Okay, they didn't tell us what the average temperature was in Kuwait City, but we do have the latitude. Well, now what that equation we have for the line of best fit does is it will let us estimate what it would be for that. So what I would want to see from you guys is that you take your equation, and for your x, I want you to plug in that 29.2 latitude for Kuwait and come up with an answer for that. So I'm going to clear this off my screen, and if I just did negative 0.76 times 29.2 plus 69.81, okay, I can estimate that this would be, okay, it says 47.618. I'm going to tell you that since all the other numbers in the table were whole numbers, the book rounded this off to a whole number as well. So if you're looking at this answer and you were going to round it to the nearest whole number, that should round to about 48 degrees. So you have your linear regression, you have your kind of interpretation of what the correlation coefficient means, and then you have solved for the missing piece. Okay, so you guys are going to do basically the exact same thing with number 18, which you need to take the time, help each other out, and get the calculator stuff done now in class, because you can't do that without the calculator. So everybody at least needs to get the equation and the correlation coefficient down before they go. And then when you guys go to do number 20, that's a little bit more of review from yesterday with residuals, because each table gives you the median age of people living in the United States based on the results of the United States Census over the past few decades. Use residuals to calculate the quality of fit for the line y equals 0.5x plus 20, where y is the median age, as x is the years since 1970. So they have already given you the line of fit. You don't need to get that off your calculator. So you have the line of fit. You need to go back and look at your residual notes from yesterday, and you need to calculate the residuals for these numbers by plugging them in here and finding that difference for residuals. And then you need to decide, how good of a fit is it? So remember us talking a little bit yesterday about how when you get smaller residuals, it's a pretty good fit. It represents the data very well. But when you get residuals that are showing that your points are very, very far off of the line, then you're not getting so good of a fit. So you need to do the work to find the residuals, which you don't have to have your calculator for. And then you need to just kind of write a brief description of like, okay, these residuals show this is a good fit, or these residuals show that it's not so great of a fit. So good luck, help each other out with calculators, and we will grade all of lesson 10-2 tomorrow.